We now have everything blocked out. So let's go in and refine a lot of the topology, and also we'll be adding the inside of the mouth, inside of the nose, and the inside of the eyes here. So let's start by refining everything. So what we're seeing is in areas like this, we have incredibly stretched polygons. You generally want it to be nice and even. Like this here is a fairly nice polygon because it's nice and square, but this here is getting really undefined. This just means that you have areas where it just doesn't support the actual shape. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be adding loops like so. Just hit Control R, and when this stuff happens, you can see the shape goes a bit crazy. That just means we've been pushing it really far. So we just need to make sure to go in here and just really add loops, which supports it. Same with this as well. We can see here it's very stretched here, and it's very stretched the other way here. So we go in and we can set edit edge flow, and now it becomes more in the center. We definitely have to go in and refine this as well. This is where it's also helpful to go into the actual material and just set the alpha down a little bit so that we can easier see the surface underneath it. Like Blender, unfortunately, just isn't a great tool for when it comes to displaying your topology. Hopefully they're working on it. That would be the first thing I would do if I was the benevolent dictator of Blender. I would add a proper retopo view here, because this is quite tricky to work with sometimes. And as you can see, just one vert at a time. Just take it easy, work slowly, and good things will come to you. Set the opacity all the way back again. And you can see we're missing a lot of refinement here as well. We have the same as before. We have incredibly stretched polygons. You can see how stretched this is. So let's go in and just refine it like so. And I tend to go over every single point like this because you will have issues where they just go popping like crazy. So it's really important to review them from different angles and just to make sure they are properly refined. And this is exactly why we spend so much time blocking in early on. The quicker or the easier, the more refined your main loops are, the easier it is to add loops like this. And we need to add one loop here as well. If you right click now, it will be put in the exact center of it. So you can go down here, it doesn't matter, and right click, and it's gonna cancel the operation, meaning it's just gonna put it right in the center. This video here might be the one where you want to just go to Spotify, put on some tunes or something, because there is a fair bit of tweaking here. There is no way to really avoid that. You could, of course, go in with the relax vertices tool or smooth vertices tool, but you really just have to do this by hand. No substitute for good old manual labor. This is when I wish Morten was here in this video as well to tell you some terrible jokes or maybe some animal facts, but fortunately he is not. Go in here and we can also add the set flow just to get a bit nicer, a bit more even result as well. But just be aware that the edit flow button doesn't actually conform to the background. It will just mathematically put it in the center of where the other loop was. But already now you can see everything is starting to be a bit more refined. It just looks a bit nicer now. We definitely have to add more loops here as well, around the mouth, like so. Around here as well. This is so that you can get decent articulation around the mouth. We'll also do a relaxing pause at some point as well, because we will definitely have to do that, because it's the more loops you add to it, the messier it's going to be, and even if you are doing a really good job at putting them in like this, it's just very tricky to get them to be perfectly aligned the way they should be. We can also see at some point that you need more resolution around the mouth than you do down here. So then we can do the same thing that we did in the high to low video, where we are just going to be cutting out some of the loops. So we're going to be doing that pretty soon, because we really don't need this level of resolution down here. Here as well, you can see that it's really flat, and this is because we don't have enough loops. You can see here the moment we add another loop in the center, like so, you can see the shape changes quite a lot. So we just need to put it right there. One thing we haven't talked about is the auto merge, which you can find under, if the N key, then we go to tool and we can find auto merge. This just means that it will merge it based on a distance. So it means, for instance, if you were to drag something like this and put it in to a center like this, let's just set the distance a lot higher, 0.1, 0.01. Now this is going to be merging these two together. Pros and cons of this, for instance, if you were to select this one and just snap it in, it means that now it's merged, but it also means that it can be a lot harder to model sometimes, because you will accidentally merge something like this. In this case, right, you just want to move it together, but it actually just merges it together. And that can be really good, but it can also be insanely frustrating, because you might not realize that it's been merged until later on, which is why we aren't using this feature in this video at all, really. But just be aware that it exists. So auto merge under tool, set to something like 0.1 depending on the scene scale. And it's what I do use it for is if I select this loop and now we can just merge it together. And now this is now merged with this. You could also just, control exit, but whatever you prefer, just a little handy tip for you right there. We are now going to be disabling auto merge. I just figured I would mention this while it's fresh in memory. Add a loop here as well. And we definitely have to add more loops here. This is really where we get the curvature of the lip. I'm going to be enabling the mirror one again, just so we can see a bit better, because it can be a bit hard to actually see what's going on. When you have this arrow here as well, now that we have displayed the cage, you see that we do have this this flickering. This can be mitigated if we add a displace modifier. So under the form, displace, and now if we actually set this to be enabled in the viewport, now it moves it out like crazy. This is strength is something like 0.01. Now it's just been moved a little bit, just a teeny tiny bit, but it's enough just to avoid this. To avoid the flickering. So if you do have that, the displace modifier can be great. You can also do it right in a shrink wrap modifier. I just prefer to have it in one as a separate modifier, just because it's just a bit more convenient for me. But that's entirely personal preference. Let's select this and set flow. This would put a bit more in the center. Set flow. Actually, let's not do it in this one, because we want this to define the actual, like the vermilion line, the actual lip line. Okay, getting there. So I'm just looking out now, like zooming out and trying to see the big picture here. And stuff I'm immediately seeing is this loop here. This is really sparse, and it goes into the eyes. We want to really make sure this has enough resolution as well. Same with this, very sparse. Generally want everything to be nice and square. If something is very stretched, I tend to add more loops to it. Okay, let's go in and define the eye a bit more. So like we said before, we try to make the upper lid have the same amount of spans as the lower lid. Not entirely sure if this is possible now, just because it just takes a bit longer, but that's a general good convention to have. Doesn't really matter for this one at all, because remember what we said, right? Retopology is like an engine. It all depends on what the use case for is. For something like this, we're not really going to be using this for deformation, at least not super heavy deformation. So in this case, there isn't a necessarily need for it. But if you are using this for production, I do really recommend that you make the high and or the top and the bottom the same amount. Now we can select this, and we can now start to make the inner lid. So just extrude. We scale down this a little bit. And now I'm going to select just Control and plus to select more. Then we're going to hit Shift H, just because we don't need anything else right now. We just want this. And then I'm just going to be moving this entire loop inwards a little bit. And make sure that the stuff which goes a bit crazy, that this here is moved back into its correct spot, like so. And then we can just move it like this. In this case, like 4 of them went crazy, but a vast majority of them actually worked. So in that case, we should just keep it. You also see this giant shape here. Well, not giant, it's giant now. It's actually a very tiny shape. That's the caruncula. It's like the tear duct. So it's really important to get that in topology as well. I see a lot of people actually don't do that. You can add it in this object, or you can make a separate object for it. Depends a bit on your personal preference, but the point is at least that you need to make sure when you're sculpting to put the caruncula in here, and when you're retopologizing to just make sure it's represented in topology. This is where I wish I had a bit higher resolution model, but like I explained before, the video would be way too choppy for that. Okay, pretty decent spot. Now we can take this guy here and we can extract it up. We can just extrude it up, sorry. Just make sure we are representing this in topo. Let's actually delete this one. This is not a good solution for this. Let's put it here in the back, extrude it in as well. Then we can select this like so, and this like so. This is why I often prefer to do it as a separate object. Just it's a bit easier to do it that way. We can select this entire thing and just remove these polygons here. Just shift click on them. Then we can extrude it in again like so. We can always fix the broken polys. We can select these guys like so. We can delete them, and then we can just put these guys in like so. These kind of areas are just a bit fiddly sometimes. And then we can just remodel them. Okay, cool. So now we have the caruncula in topology like this, and all is well. We'll fill in this region here later on as well. And then we need another loop going around here. You generally want a loop going around the eye like this, so that it's nice and sharp. Keep in mind what happens when you subdivide a model, that you really want to make sure that this is nice and clean. One thing to keep in mind as well is what happens when you close the eyelid. You need to make sure that you have enough topology around this as well. So that right now you can't really close the eyelid because there's no topology here. So we need to make sure that we have enough topology going around like so. And let's add another loop here as well. Because now you can really see what happens, like we're really getting into the shape of it now. This is also why some people prefer to model with the eyes closed, just because then you can clearly see what it looks like closed and you can articulate topology for it. But I still prefer to model it open. You can just add a few more loops around the eyes, just so you know you have enough topo. Okay, then we can hit Alt-H again. Alt is, in Blender, is generally the key for do the opposite. So if H is hide, then Alt-H is most likely going to be anti-hide. It's going to be the alternative to hide. Okay, so now we have a really nice and refined eye like this. Looks pretty good by now. We can also add a loop going here as well, just to refine it even further. This is also why I highly recommend that you finish your sculpting before you retopologize. It's very, very tempting to go into to skip the final steps of sculpting, like really getting the mid frequency in there because you want to get started retopo and UVs and all that. But then you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because now you have to design this when you're retopologizing, and you want to design anything here. You want to only do the technical thing. Let's add another loop here. Again, this is a good sign. Everything goes a bit crazy here. That's a good sign. It means that we don't have enough topology, and by adding this, we get more topology we can work with. We can select this and select this, the range, and then we can hit the G key just to even it out just a little bit like so. Okay, we have to add more loops here as well, because this is getting very stretched. And then we were seeing some issues here. Let's just make sure this is right in the center. If it's not, then you have issues whenever you're mirroring it over. And then, of course, we have a lot of work ahead of us when it comes to adding loops here, because these loops are really, really sparse. If you were to move the neck here with this topology, it would have a lot of issues. It wouldn't be able to articulate at all. So let's just add another one in the center, another one in the center. It's very easy to do this, where you just hit Control R and just right mouse button and get it in there. Let's just select this as well. Select this entire range. And here we can add on a loop like so. Control R. There we go. And then for this, instead of adding a loop here, we can select it. Alt click on it. We can hit Q and set flow. Q and set flow. It just means we get a nicer flow for it. So just make sure to go around this quite often, just to make sure that you have really nice and even flow for your models. Same here. And same thing here as well. We need to just make sure we have more resolution here. So instead of adding loops, let's see how far we can get by just setting the flow. That's like the first line of defense. If you use the polygons to the best of your ability before you add more polys. Adding more polys doesn't necessarily solve any issues, so let's just make sure we have them. We have used the ones we have. It's kind of when you're sculpting as well. You don't want to just add subdivisions. You want to make sure that the subdivisions you have are really utilized. Okay, then we can go in here, we can select the polygon or a vert, doesn't really matter, and then we can grow it a little bit, like so. And then we can use smooth vertices, and this just smooths it out a little bit. Just hit it a few times, and this is just going to even it out just a little bit, like so. And then this one here is annoying me, so we just put it in the center. And let's just add another loop here as well. We just know we need more resolution around this area because it's pushed quite a lot. So set flow, set flow, set flow. And then we can do another relaxation pass. Let's go into the eye and just make sure everything here is good. It looks like nothing has gone absolutely bananas, so that means we're in a good spot. And let's do the same thing here, what we did on the front or on the head, where we are making sure that the line is, the polys are in the center. Okay, so the eye is in a pretty decent spot now. Generally, we've added a lot more resolution around here. Let's go into the nose and give this some more loving. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I can add loops here, just so we can add more resolution to it, without it interfering with, without it actually going into the face. Like this is what we were talking about right before, where adding loops can go into indirection, and this could connect all the way down to his toes if he had toes. So I'm just deleting those loops instead and just making sure that what we have here doesn't really impact that. So now we can select this point. And when it comes to this, this is one of these where you don't necessarily have all the answers. You are figuring stuff out as you go along as well. Select this and that. So if this isn't immediately clear to you, like how you do solve these puzzles, just try a few things out. Worst case, you delete those polys later on. We can do the same thing as before as well. We can select a poly and we can just grow it a little bit, and we can hit Shift H just to hide it. Hide this as well. Just so we have something nice and clean to work with. Select this and hit the F key. Okay, so we're in a pretty good spot now with the nose. What's left of the nose and the eyes is really to fill them in. Hit Alt H to unhide everything, and let's give the mouth some loving as well. Okay, so this is where I'm going to be doing the same thing as before with the ear. Let's select the loop around here, and maybe we can grow it once. Shift H. And then we're going to be blocking in the inside of the mouth. So when it comes to the inside, of the mouth, I really prefer to keep it in the same object, particularly in something like this. If you have some like really specific design, you might want to do them as a separate piece. But I really prefer to have it as the same object. It makes everything easier, and you're not going to have a seam line here or anything like that. So let's just block this in. Now we are doing the gums as a separate object as well. This just makes it a lot easier for us. Let's just select all the loops here, like so. And then we're just going to be blocking them in. And whenever it changes color, it might be hard to see because of perspective, but I mean, just means that something went crazy. So let's just block this in. And we'll do the same thing here. We just add it like so. The reason I'm not doing everything in one operation is because stuff can just go a bit too nuts. So it's a lot easier for me to do this in separate operations like so. We also need to make sure we have adequate topology for these areas as well, because we still have, when we sculpted this, we still had the inside of the mouth as a separate thing to model. Like we still sculpt this. It's like this and do like that. And like with everything, we just have to make sure that this actually looks nice. Just because of the inside of the mouth doesn't mean you can rush it. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now is, it can be a bit tricky sometimes to extrude as one operation, even trickier than doing the entire thing. So let's just do one poly at a time here. Let's refine this a little bit, and let's just extrude this guy here in now. The reason is because we have a quite tricky view to actually look at here. So let's just extrude it in like so. And then we can go in and we can just start to refine this. It works pretty well if you just hit the F key and without actually moving it around. You get pretty nice and even topology this way. But it still allows you to clean it up as you go along because it automatically gives you the moving tool. Cool. Let's extrude this all the way back like so. So we're going to have an open hole here in the back, which we're going to be fixing a bit later on. But it just means that we're not going to be making this, we're not going to be following the shape exactly, because there is kind of like a mouth bag going all the way down into here. And in order to do that, we need to do it as a very last thing, just because otherwise it's going to be snapping to the model, and that's just not going to work. So we're going to be doing that as one of the very, very last things we do in our cleanup process. So whenever I try to be smart about this and try to do this in like one operation, it always bites me in the butt. So I just try to, I just embrace it now that this is just gonna take a few clicks and then it's clean. But you can see how fast it is. Even this doesn't really take a whole lot of time. It just means you're controlling every single part of the topology process. And if you do that, you just consistently get good and clean results. And then we can just add some more loops to it like this. Control R and Control R again. Just so we have an approximate shape and just make sure this here is centered. We can just do the same thing here. Now this is where it is a bit more important to get right, because here we actually have the shape of the lip on the inside as well. So this is more part of the design. Make sure to save your work. Okay, and then Alt-H to make everything visible again. And since we didn't really add any more loops, we should be fine. Like we don't really have any weird end guns or anything like that now. Now I still have to add another loop going down here, because we need more resolution in the corner of the mouth. Otherwise you will get really weird and soft shapes. Particularly if you, like we're not doing this, but particularly if you are doing face shapes for this, this just means that in order to get really, really tight facial expressions in our animation, you will literally sculpt the facial expressions, which means you need topology in very specific spots. This is very similar to, if you remember from the very first video, where we show Helen from The Incredibles, where she has some very specific topology to get like the area here. It just means that in order to make these shapes really nice, you just need topology in these areas, which is why we're adding this loop here. I'm just trying to make it nice and clean, nice and tight here. We can select this entire loop and smooth vert and edge flow and then smooth verts. Same thing here. We can do edge flow, set flow, set flow. We can also just take this entire region, Control plus, take it up and smooth verts. And you just see everything just becomes a little bit cleaner. Set this one here and set flow. Move it down a little bit. Oh, and stuff went a bit crazy there. And like before, I would much rather want to move the loops from here and up. We're a bit sparse here. So let's see if we can instead try to just move these guys up. Most of the time, you can move them instead of adding new geo. There's probably one area which is too dense, and then you can just make that area less dense and add the density somewhere else. We can go in and we can just refine this a little bit. So now we're in a spot here where we're getting pretty decent results. We are almost done with the model now. We still have some light cleanup to do. We have to just check for triangles and n-gons, make sure everything is fine. We have to do the inside of, like the final inside of this. So let's get on to actually doing the inside of the eyes and inside of the nose right now. And then we'll do the inside of the mouth a bit later. So let's start with the mouth or the nose here. Select the entire inside here. Then we can extrude it. And then we can scale it down. This is where you're literally going inside of the nose. Like, this is not the most important area of the body. So you can cheat a little bit here. So this is where we can... We can just select the loops and we can grow them up. Hit all Shift H, and now we can start to extrude them in. The point is that we want to make a hole here. We just want to connect it up because this is the inside of the nose. So now we want to connect this to that, hit the J key, and there we go. And the inside of the nose, you can have triangles there, unless for some reason you're not allowed to use triangles. Can add some slight more resolution here, just we can define a little bit more. Then we can set this, we can just move this up a little bit. We also need more resolution here as well on like the supervillain headband going around it, like so.